You think you know peace, right? You buy your slice of nowhere, 20 acres of beautiful, messy, rugged Utah desert, a place where the sky is so big it humbles you. And you figure, that's it. I'm done with the noise. I'm done with the drama. But then, one Tuesday morning, you drive home with your coffee and your dog, and you realize someone has decided your dirt road, the one explicitly listed on your deed as private access, non-easement, is now theirs, and they've installed a full, corporate-grade, motorized security gate right across the entry, like a challenge written in steel and spite. My name is Wyatt Stone, and I've been living out here in the foothills of the Wasatch Range for 7 years, running a small solar maintenance company, loving every dusty, uneven inch of my 4,000-foot-long access road that cuts through the sagebrush like a private artery connecting my life to the main county route. It's my path, registered and paid for. No shared use, no gray area. I love that road because nobody came out here except for me, the wildlife, and maybe a delivery driver who looked visibly distressed about his GPS unit. But that changed the day the Sagebrush Vista Estates elected a new HOA president. Her name was Veronica Cross, a real piece of work, the kind of person who wore power suits and expensive shades to community meetings, spoke entirely in corporate jargon, and believed her authority extended not just over the manicured lawns of her little development, but over the entire county's sense of decency. She lived over a mile away, separated by a steep ridge and thick scrub, and I had never spoken to her, never even seen her up close, because my land had zero, absolutely zero, legal connection to her little fiefdom. That's why I damn near hydroplaned my old F-250 when I saw the gate. It was an imposing thing, a dual-arm metal barrier, painted in their hideous burgundy and gold, with a keypad, an RFID reader, and a cold little camera pointed right at my windshield. Welded to the post was a sign screaming, "Private access, Sagebrush Vista residents only. All entry must be PRE authorized by Vesta Security." It wasn't rustic, it wasn't practical, it was institutional, HOA-grade muscle planted squarely on my deeded private property. I climbed out, the red dust crunching under my boots, and I felt that cold, slow burn start in my chest. The cement footings were still soft. This audacity had gone up in the last 24 hours, a silent, unauthorized declaration of war. There was no note, no warning, just the gate and the sign, bold, authoritative, and completely, laughably illegal. I didn't call a lawyer right away. I called the county recorder's office. A lovely woman named Sarah ran the GIS map for me, and her voice was laced with sympathy when she confirmed, "Nope, Mr. Stone, that road is deeded to you. 100% private. The HOA has zero claim." Exactly what I thought, but it was nice to hear it from the state. So, the next morning, I drove down to the Vesta clubhouse. I found Veronica there, looking like she'd just walked off a campaign poster, clipboard ready, a smile that looked bolted onto her face and didn't reach her eyes. I cut straight to it. "You can take down the gate you installed on my private road." Her smile widened, condescending and pitying all at once. "Oh, that road. Yes, we've been addressing it. You see, Vesta is absorbing responsibility for security and traffic flow in the area. That road passes through what we consider a protective perimeter, a crucial buffer zone." "A buffer zone you don't own," I stated flatly. She tapped her clipboard, making a tiny, tisk-tisk noise. "I think there's some confusion, Mr. Stone. We now control access to protect our residents. However, if you'd like to apply for a use authorization permit through our board, we can grant you access." I stood there, blinking, feeling the heat rise in my neck. The absurdity of it was staggering. "I don't need your damn permission to use my own road," I said, barely keeping the laughter out of my voice. "Then I suggest you contact legal counsel," she dismissed, already turning away. "All use of the access road must be cleared with our team going forward. Have a pleasant day." I watched her disappear into her beige temple of bureaucratic nonsense, the clipboard swinging like a tiny, arrogant sword. I didn't call my lawyer. Not yet. I called Lieutenant Rick Doc Harlan. Doc and I go way back. We met when I did some rapid repair work on his mother's solar array after a microburst knocked out half her power grid. He's one of the few law enforcement officers who understands the difference between a fence dispute and outright, willful lunacy. I laid out the basics, and Doc's response was a simple, "I'll be there in 20. Do not touch the gate." He pulled up in his cruiser, not a minute late. The moment he stepped out, he squinted at the gate like it had personally offended his sense of justice. "You've got to be kidding me, Wyatt," he muttered. We walked around it. The fresh cement, the new sign, the absolute lack of legal right. Doc called in his partner, Officer Mills, who arrived looking like he was seriously questioning his career choices, dreading the impending HOA drama. As we were standing there, a white Vesta security SUV rolled up from the community side. Out stepped Veronica herself, clipboard in hand, sunglasses fixed, her mouth already moving before her car, door even shut. "Officers, can I help you with something?" she called out, treating them like a couple of patrolmen who'd wandered onto her estate. "You can explain why there's a barrier installed across private, deeded property," Doc said, cutting through her pleasantries. Veronica's smile twitched. "This isn't just any property. This road crosses into our protective zone. We are mitigating security concerns." She pulled out a folder, handing him a laminated sheet. "Here's a copy of our provisional access policy. Anyone can fill out a request form." I couldn't hold it back. A sharp, loud laugh escaped me. "Did you just try to hand a sheriff's lieutenant a request form for a road I own?" Veronica ignored me, focusing entirely on Doc, who was skimming the policy with the face of a man reading a ransom note from a highly educated, deeply disturbed squirrel. "Mrs. Cross," Doc said slowly, his voice dropping to that dangerous, flat tone only cops master. "This isn't a civil issue. This is bordering on criminal obstruction. You are denying a property owner lawful access to their land. That's unlawful." He didn't wait for her corporate babble about interim measures to start. He turned to Mills. "Get the bolt cutters from the trunk. We're taking this thing down." Veronica shrieked. "That gate is HOA property." "No." I cut in, walking up to her. "That gate is sitting on my property, which makes it trespassing equipment." Doc gave her no more courtesy. Officer Mills quickly sliced through the lockbox. The gate sagged and then, with a humiliating clatter, the arms were unhinged and laid flat on the gravel. The camera on top seemed to swivel slightly, as if trying to hide its electronic face in shame. A young security guard who'd been sitting in the SUV tried to protest, but Doc silenced him with a quiet, icy threat of jail time. Veronica, however, wasn't done. She paced, making loud, indignant calls, demanding lawyers and county officials. Then, in the middle of her tirade, she turned to her SUV, and her face went instantly pale. She'd parked just far enough into the soft gravel that her tires were now buried. When she tried to reverse, the wheels spun uselessly, spraying red dust. "Are you kidding me?" she muttered. Doc raised an eyebrow at me. I smiled and shook my head. She slammed the door, marched off into the scrub brush in her impractical heels, a suburban general retreating in ignominy. I watched her go, a genuine, deep satisfaction settling in my gut. I figured that public embarrassment, a seized gate, and a long, dusty walk back to her beige palace would keep Veronica quiet for a while. I was wrong. The very next morning, my inbox pinged with an HOA email blast titled, "Security Incident Update. Community Safety Critically at Risk." She called me an unidentified male individual operating heavy equipment in an unauthorized zone, claimed I had verbally threatened security staff, and my personal favorite, performed vehicular intimidation. She attached blurry screenshots and a badly photoshopped image that made it look like I was trying to ram the gate. Amateur hour. But the real escalation landed in my actual mailbox 2 days later. A manila envelope with an official-looking gold-embossed seal. Utah Division of Rural Transportation and Infrastructure. Inside was a citation. I was being fined $6,400 for unauthorized interference with a county-installed access control system. I stared at the dollar amount, then down at the bottom of the letter. The signature was printed in a ridiculously cheerful Comic Sans font. I immediately drove it down to the county clerk's office. Sarah, the clerk, took one look, flipped to the back, and said, "Wyatt, this is either a bad joke or someone is about to commit a serious felony." She ran the contact number and the P.O. box. The department didn't exist, the fine was fake, and the use of state stationery was textbook fraud. The sheriff's office opened a case against Veronica that same afternoon. She had just promoted herself from nuisance to criminal. I knew she'd try again. Desperate people don't stop, they double down. 3 nights later, my perimeter cam buzzed with a motion alert. Headlights, slow and creeping. I watched the live feed. A brand new gate, a towering double-arm barrier with a fancy keypad and a Bluetooth lift system being installed near the old spot. I recognized the brand, a common suburban access controller. And then I noticed the key detail. The installer hadn't wiped the default firmware. I grabbed my laptop, fired up a simple Bluetooth override app one used for utility substations, and pinged the gate controller. Guess what? No password, no encryption. I sent a simple command string. Open. Wait 60 seconds. Close. Repeat. The gate arms began jerking up and down like a manic puppet, flashing red lights like a catastrophic disco. The security guards came sprinting out of the woods, kicking it, trying to manually override it with a laptop. 5 minutes later, Veronica herself appeared in pajamas and a reflective vest, screaming into a walkie-talkie. I filmed the whole thing, the visual evidence of their failure uploaded directly to my cloud server. A few days after the Bluetooth boogaloo, it went quiet. Too quiet. I knew that silence meant something big was brewing. Then, the certified mail arrived, a full-on lawsuit. Veronica, acting as Vesta HOA president, was suing me for destruction of community infrastructure, malicious obstruction, and intentional sabotage of HOA safety protocols. The cherry on top, however, was an attached exhibit, a photocopy of a property agreement, supposedly signed 7 years ago by Alan Brody, the previous owner of my land. It stated that Brody agreed to joint jurisdiction over the road. I knew Alan. The man had once called a speed bump a socialist tool of oppression. There was no way he signed that. Tom Delgado, my lawyer, confirmed it. We pulled the original deed, crystal clear, private, non-easement access. Tom called in a document examiner. The analysis came back. The signature was forged. The paper was bought in bulk by the HOA just 2 months prior, paid for with a Vesta check. Veronica had manufactured evidence and submitted it to the court. We handed that over to the sheriff immediately. She was now staring down attempted fraud, falsification of legal documents, and perjury by proxy. But the final nail in her pristine, expensive coffin came courtesy of a whistleblower. A board member, a fed-up guy named Gus, reached out to me anonymously. He sent screenshots of their internal Slack conversation where Veronica literally wrote, "He won't fight back. He's just some backwoods solar guy. I doubt he even knows how to read deed language. And the money shot. Just make a fake agreement. Alan's in Alaska. No one will check." That was it. The smoking gun. Tom called the district attorney's office personally. Our file on Veronica was now the size of a phone book, video, forged documents, internal communications, and physical sabotage. The DA referred it for formal prosecution. I was itching for the court date. There's a special kind of anticipation that comes from knowing you're about to publicly dismantle someone who tried to take what's yours and lied about it every step of the way. The civil hearing was set in a small, squat county courthouse. Veronica arrived late, arms full of binders, radiating fake confidence. She wouldn't look at me. Tom opened our case, ignoring the drama, and laid out the facts like surgical instruments. First, the deed, full, exclusive private ownership. Then, the videos, my camera footage of the first gate removal, the remote sabotage of the second, and the hilarious clip of Veronica herself, in gym clothes and gloves, smashing my trail cam like a cranky teenager. Judge Holloway, a no-nonsense woman, didn't blink. Then came the forged agreement. Tom objected to its introduction, handing the judge the expert analysis, the incongruous font, the traceable paper receipt. "Your Honor," Tom said calmly, "this document was manufactured by the plaintiff and submitted to this court in an attempt to fraudulently assert control over property that clearly and legally belongs to my client." Veronica stammered. I was told it was archived. I didn't check. "So you submitted it under oath without verifying its authenticity?" The judge pressed. Silence. Next came the fake citation, the absurd fine from the non-existent department, and the trail leading to her niece's rental box. And then, Tom hit her with the final, crippling blow, the financial records. Recently subpoenaed HOA logs showed Vesta had paid for both gates to a contractor, Cedar Horizon Group, LLC. Registered owner? Veronica R. Sanders, under her maiden name. The judge asked only one question. "Ms. Sanders, were you aware that you were issuing HOA payments to a company you personally own?" Veronica froze. her lawyer looking like he wanted to evaporate. The judge sat back, letting the silence stretch, then declared, "I'm prepared to rule." What followed was music to my ears. First, the lawsuit against me was dismissed with prejudice. Then came the sanctions. Veronica was fined $25,000 for abusing the court system and submitting falsified documents. She was ordered to pay $84,000 in restitution to me for damages, legal fees, and equipment loss. And then, the judicial hammer fell. Ms. Sanders is hereby removed from her position as president of the Sagebrush Vista Estates Homeowners Association, effective immediately. Furthermore, this court refers her actions to the district attorney's office for possible criminal prosecution under Utah State Code 76 relating to tampering with evidence and falsifying official documents. Veronica didn't cry or scream. She sat like a porcelain doll dropped down a flight of stairs, cracked, but still upright. Outside, Tom lit a cigar and handed me one. "You know, for a guy who just wanted to be left alone, you sure make good court drama." I grinned. "Next time, I'll just put up a "No Karens Allowed" sign." The fallout was spectacular. The HOA's insurance wouldn't cover her intentional fraud, so to cover the $84,000, the HOA placed a lien on Veronica's own house. A few weeks later, a bright yellow "For Sale by Owner" sign went up in front of her place. Poetic justice felt so good, you could taste it. I didn't gloat, publicly anyway. Instead, I drove out and installed new steel posts every 100 yards along my access road, each anchored in concrete, topped with motion-sensitive solar lights, and bearing the same black and white sign. Private road. Trespassing invites prosecution. My friend Chris, the tech guy I knew from Denver, called and offered me a full, state-of-the-art perimeter system upgrade. Drones, facial recognition intercom, night vision, for free, just for the PR testimonial. My road was now cleaner than a CIA black site. My mornings feel different now, quieter. I can sip my coffee without checking security feeds every 5 minutes. The dog stopped barking at invisible bureaucrats in the brush. But I wasn't done being thorough. I remembered how Veronica's crew had illegally rerouted one of my groundwater lines. So, one sunny Friday, I drove out with a pipe wrench and a hacksaw, restored the line to my original water tank, and added a pressure valve that would deliver a very wet, very shocking surprise to anyone who tried to tamper with it again. Call it poetic plumbing. That night, I hosted a little victory barbecue. I raised a toast with Doc and the few good neighbors who came. "To boundaries," I said. "May we all know where ours end, and where the HOA can shove theirs." And that, my friends, is how you deal with an HOA when they decide your private property is their problem. You don't fight fire with fire. You fight it with facts, documentation, a good lawyer, and a well-placed sheriff. So what's your take? Was the judge's sentence, the $84,000 lien on her own house, and the criminal referral, too harsh? Or did Veronica Cross deserve everything she got for trying to steal private property and committing fraud? Hit the comments below. Have you ever had a nightmare HOA story? Share it. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories about fighting back against overreach.